people didn't move around all that much before electricity. Electricity was a thing that allowed cities to grow big and to move lots of people regularly. And it was primarily streetcars and transit that allowed that and really expanded with our cities. So I think of that as phase zero, mobilization. And increasingly, the way I look at this is that motorization has gone through three phases. The first phase is growth, essentially giving over streets to the car. That's about 60 years. I think it's fair to say like around 1985 is when we start to realize en masse that that's just not scaling anymore. It allows cities to expand without restrictions. Federal policy is mostly anti-urban during that period, favoring expansion, favoring road building, and kind of letting mass transit run itself into the ground, and tons of unintended consequences that we talked about. Phase two, which we're kind of wrapping up now, I call saturation. And this is when we realize that that doesn't work anymore. It's not, we can't build roads fast enough. They keep filling up. It's causing all these other pollution, obesity, whatever. And we start to try to retrofit some other transportation policies on top of it, like transit-oriented development. That's about 40 years. We see some sort of modestly pro-urban policies being introduced during that period. And then what we're confronting ahead, again, is this 20-year period of automation. And it's primarily about reinventing the automobile. It's involving a massive amount of private investment. And again, I don't think we really have an urban lens yet. And Robin made this really compellingly that I think it's key to understand that there's nothing inevitable about the direction this goes. It's really up to us to design the outcome and to influence that through policy. What really bothers me, though, is the focus on passenger vehicles, because we're still debating whether they're going to catch on, whether they're going to appeal to a mass market. I think there's, for everyone that says that these are inevitable, that they're going to take over, there are lots of people with very good, strong reservations about it. And I think a better way of looking at it is the way Bill Mitchell described in his 95 book, City of Bits, which is still one of the best books on thinking about how technology and urban space interact, was this notion of fragmentation and recombination. So it's not so much about are the schools going to move, or the bank's going to move, or the home's going to move, but are pieces of what happens inside those buildings or inside those businesses going to get pulled apart and reconfigured. And the best example he used was Amazon, which took the different parts of the bookstore and put the shop window on the web, put the cash register on the web, and put the stock room in a warehouse somewhere in Seattle or Nevada or wherever. So it centralized some things, decentralized other things, and allowed them. But now we see book selling all over the place. We see it in airports. We see it, the existing clusters of things that make up our cities aren't necessarily going to hold. This is my first cut at trying to map out what this means for cities, what they should pay attention to, and the levers that they can pull. Safety, obviously, it's top federal priority. It's the top industry priority, and it's going to be the top priority to just allow this to happen, to proceed at all. I'm not sure whether the impacts on transit are going to be felt first or the impacts on employment are going to be felt first, but I think they'll come around the same time, and of course they'll be interrelated. And then the land use impacts, which are the biggest structural changes, will take the longest to see, the longest to understand which way they're going. I think in an ideal world, we'll tie these last three issues together under an accessibility framework and realize that what we're actually trying to do is make sure that people can get to the places that they're going, and that's how we should measure whether we're succeeding or not.